Hello, I'm Karim Marucchi from Crud Favorite. First of all, I'd like to thank WP Agency Summit for coming and asking me to speak today. I'm hoping that we can share some information that might help inspire you to have more conversations with customers on how open source and WordPress can help them expand what they're doing with their customers past just a content management system. So let's get started. At Crud Favorite, we have 17 years experience of working with some of the Fortune 100, 500, and 1,000, um, helping them integrate WordPress, helping them integrate open source into their ecosystem to actually try and cut down on being stuck on one SaaS solution or being able to be nimble in today's ever-changing needs. So when we engage with our customers, one of the first things we hear is, how do we move from pushing content to delivering a true 360-degree omni-channel experience? Our customers want to meet their clients where they are. They want to understand how to actually have a relationship with them, not just market to them. And that's where the idea around 360-degree client relationships really ended up bringing the idea in of a personalized experience, an experience that's centered on the customer, focused on a customer journey. So they don't want to talk about content management systems. What they really want to talk about is, how do they get an experience that brings things together? Now, for those of you who've been in the WordPress industry for a long time, you're familiar with how the rise of the API has made it so that WordPress can actually hook up to just about anything. With the REST API and with the way we've hooked up, all of us in this industry hooked up WordPress to different solutions and SaaS products, it really is interesting to see where things have gone in the last 10 years. But we still, as a community, are selling WordPress like this, saying, look, we can hook up anything to this content management system. And that's where some folks call it an agile CMS. And that's all true. But honestly, this is what we're selling against. This is just an example of how Verizon was told that by using AEM, they could centralize their entire sales and marketing experience. They could have a customer experience that went from one side of gaining the customer through the entire relationship with the customer, all through one product, one SaaS. So when we go out there and we're pitching WordPress, they're still seeing us as a blog. They're still seeing us as a CMS that you can hook things up to. In reality, they're promising just that they're going to be able to give you all these other monolithic SaaS systems are promising they're going to be able to give you this true unified experience that touches every aspect of how you sell and market and deal with your customer lifetime. But this promise of mixed workflows in reality ends up being 37 administrative workflows, um, interfaces with 22 workflows. Can you imagine being a marketer and having to have quite literally 37 different tools? And you have to memorize or have access to remembering how to get through 22 different workflows just to have a digital interaction with customers. That is not what a DXP is supposed to be. The DXP name has gotten a little bit of a black eye since 2018 because of the way money's just been pumped into it. But the bottom line is, when you look at how the enterprise and how larger companies are looking at the market, they see Adobe and Acquia and Sitecore, Optimizely as really leaders in this area. But what we end up with is a bunch of limitations, a bunch of reasons why the customer really isn't looking to be locked into one roadmap. And you might be saying to yourself, well, we're just talking about locking them into the roadmap of WordPress instead of the WordPress of something else. Well, no. If you look at the limitations of out of the box WordPress, if you take into account flexibility and agility from day one, if you look at the standardized approach, and say, okay, we're going to treat WordPress as a core, as a hub, but we're going to make the experience broader than that. We're not going to stop with what here in the community we call WP admin. We're going to go further than that. So our approach here at Crowd Favorite has been to quite literally look at WordPress with an architecture of always being centered around this flexibility, agility, scalability, and continuing having lifetime value and keeping the total cost of ownership very low. So, how do we do that in a composable architecture? Well, if you think about a composable architecture as an architecture that is mixed between not just a content management system, but it also brings in the best of the SaaS and MarTech world. There's 11,000 SaaS solutions out there for helping marketing and sales. Um, it doesn't mean you have to choose WordPress and not use any one of those systems. You can integrate the best of breed with some of these out off the shelf systems and use WordPress as your hub. Then some of our enterprise customers have some older legacy systems that they also want to bring in and be able to access. Well, what it doesn't mean when you put all this together is that you have to build a bespoke system from scratch. You don't have to have those crazy number of interfaces. What you need is to not worry about the deep utilization of those off the shelf systems or the deep enterprise software packages that you may use in the past. What it means is you can actually think about using WordPress as a hub. And we're going to talk about how you can use WordPress in a way that the other things become components that are feeding your total solution. WordPress is a great hub because you can respond to the market in real time. You can make fast, editable changes. You can innovate across when the new instance of some new branding product comes out. You can test it very quickly on a sandbox if you're using WordPress as a hub as opposed to one of these SaaS systems where you have to figure out how you're going to get the information in and out of their API. So the key that we just talked about is on creating these unified workflows. In the WordPress world, we've always thought about, well, by putting in some plugins and by spending a little bit of time on cleaning up some WP admin areas, we're going to have a great experience for our customers. But again, if you look at some more complex WordPress projects, the more complex it is, the more that menu on the left in WP admin seems to grow and grow and grow. And depending on the plugins you're writing and some commercial plugins or best use open source plugins, you're not always in control of that interface if you don't spend time to create this custom workflow. In working with our clients over years, we've found that there's this magic breaking point. There's this trajectory where they've gotten so burnt out on the DXPs that I was talking about earlier that they just go, all right, how do we do something simple? And that's where you're hearing about the popularity of no code, the popularity of not dealing with complex backends. WordPress is a great tool to make a custom backend for. So that's where we get to number 4 here, where we're talking about fully modular DXPs, because we're not handing over vanilla WP admin. We're spending a lot of time making workflows based on customers' needs and experiences as part of the project cost. And if you look at the total cost of these off the shelf massive systems, compared to WordPress, you have the room in your budget to spend some time to give them something that feels very bespoke, yet is still a deep discount off of what these monolithic systems are today. So, what does this roadmap look like? These bullet points here represent broken down basically the full concept of what monolithic DXPs are offering their customers. And these days, all of them are actually um, capable of being delivered on a WordPress based system. Simplified, it looks a little bit like this. But once you get this base system down, what you end up happening what you end up having to create is a system that is truly a digital experience platform, where if you look at that blue circle in the center there, you can actually start creating your own data lake, your own source of truth of data, that whether they're using HubSpot or Salesforce or any other third parties, we have customers who are now asking us, yes, we have to process the data on these third party platforms, but we want to keep the source of truth for our content management system. We want to keep the source of truth out of all these different various MarTech 11,000 products that we might work with and own it ourselves. So it's not just about owning the CMS, not just about owning the code, but being able to own the data. So that's the concept. A lot of people can show concept, but what you want to really see is a quick look at some real life examples that are based on WordPress. So I'm going to take you through a couple. As we've talked about, really the key here is creating these custom open source based workflows, spending some time to understand how your customer is interacting with the data and with the website needs or online application needs that they have. We've created, as you're going to see, even some systems that would be called more of an ERP than a CMS that are based on open source and WordPress as a hub. Here's the first example. There's a customer named Academic Partners that used to actually use a bespoke system, and they wanted to create lots of multiple sites. They're a marketing company for large universities, but they had large teams that went through very complex iterations of creating these sites. And you say to yourself, great, we're just going to use WordPress multi-site. We're going to make it so they can spin up sites off of a template site. But yet, between the design, between having to deal with their customers' style guides, spinning up these microsites was taking weeks at a time, even using something like WordPress and multi-site. So they basically said, we need to come up with a workflow where we can have a site up in a matter of hours instead of weeks. So we worked with them and we were able to create a workflow for them that turned the entire process of creating a website into 4 screens. What did this achieve? Here's the proof in the pudding. If somebody says, all right, but what did they get out of it? This was a 30% cost savings over using a monolithic system. Then, with the total cost of ownership around open source as opposed to those monolithic systems, 35% year over year cost savings. Yet they were able to actually increase by 92, I'm sorry, reduce by 92% the amount of time they're spending with their marketing staff on the production of those websites. We're able to integrate 23 different 23 different branding um, solutions and marketing solutions into the data stream of what's creating the sites. All in all, they saw a 22% increase in university partnerships over the first year using this system. Then many years ago, we were brought in and helped the Walt Disney Company come up with their first architecture for using WordPress and replacing a proprietary system they had been using for years called Go Publish. And we created a standardized system for them. But then often there were a lot of very specialty sites that needed a lot of attention. For instance, there's this one site called DGE Press that is the press solution for all of the Walt Disney companies in discussing and making data available for the press out there internationally. They had 16 separate teams working across 4 different business units, and it was a nightmare to get things published. There, they wanted something to be a unified experience instead of pages and posts or articles, instead of categories. They wanted to focus on TV shows. They wanted their data to be focused on seasons and actors and shows and have completely different permissions in different markets. Well, that system has been running for over 10 years now without any major refactoring of code. There's maintenance, as there always is, year over year, but it hasn't been majorly rebuilt in over 10 years. It hosts over 14 million assets with different permissions depending on the markets they need to go to. It's increased their editorial velocity by over 8 times. It's an amazing way that they've been able to use the same system without rebuilding it over 3 times that they've had to change around how the business unit worked without having to change a website because it's modularized. That's a great example. Here's an example of how Insperity, one of the largest HR companies in the world, was able to move away from Sitecore by actually having progressive profiling built right into the WordPress experience. They had been held for years to paying fees on how they were going to licensing fees for their content management system for a long time. And finally, they're able to break out of that cycle by figuring out with our team and help from others in how to bring progressive profiling directly into WordPress. US Olympic Committee Museum in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Here we're using WordPress as a hub that ties their interactive real life experience to the website. Not only can you buy tickets, but then when you're using your RFID tag, when you're going through the museum experience, it's saving out some of your experiences and then making them available to you on your account when you get back home. So the user experience goes from pre-visit, during the visit, and post-visit all integrated through a WordPress hub. For Lexus, they needed to integrate being able to have their warehousing across the United States with dealerships, which you might know are separate companies, and the central Lexus organization be able to bring together the customer relationship part of recalls so that when a customer gets a postcard or an email that says you have a recall, they can log in and with their VIN number, it will pull up the availability from the dealerships. It will pull up the availability of parts throughout the United States and help them make an appointment by unifying all these different bespoke systems, but having one interface, even on the back end, for the administrators to set up no matter where the customer is throughout the United States. With Janus Henderson, here's a great example of when two large financial firms integrated. They had to come up with how to integrate information that was coming in from multiple international federal sources for the UK and in the US, and how that data needs to be modified. Their product data needs to be modified in real time based on rules that are set forth by agencies and keep that compliance. So here have been all these examples of how the proven advantages of building a composable DXP with WordPress as a hub has been really working for the last decade and longer for a lot of enterprise customers. It's time for the WordPress community to push these solutions down to the mid-market with the availability of some of the more focused SaaS marketing projects out there and the availability of how WordPress with Gutenberg and all of its advantages can help you create a really modular system of looking at what the hub is. There is no reason why you can't get your clients to understand how to better use WordPress as this hub. And if you're ever having any trouble getting their attention on this, don't talk to them about what you can build. Talk to them about what they can save, because the proven total cost of ownership is something that is immediate and is something that is seen out there as really one of the major reasons why a lot of WordPress agencies are getting appointments after appointments with large enterprises to rip and replace these monolithic SaaS systems. With that, thank you for your time today. I hope this has been helpful for you, and let me know if there's any questions. We'll try to answer them. Thank you.